Today we're making a leather neck thing. So you're going to need some leather. I am sacrificing this old leather jacket. Some scissors. I'm using fabric ones because they make cutting fabric easier, hence the name. Some thread. I'm using a really thick one, but a thin one would be better for this. I just couldn't find mine. A needle and some pins. You'll need a lot more pins than I'm showing you. About 50 should be enough. A pencil and some paper for making your template. And a dressmaking dummy if you've got one. If you don't, I have a tutorial on how to make your own out of some really cheap tape and shopping bags. So I'm starting out by making the template for the leaves. And I'm making them quite big. If you go too small with this, it's going to take you forever to sew everything and it's just going to be really fiddly and difficult. Once I've sketched it out, I'm cutting out that single template and kind of holding it up against the dummy to see if I think it's big enough. And once I'm happy with the size and shape, I'm cutting out a ton of them. I cut out about 40 and ended up using 30. And instead of cutting them all out individually, I'm folding the paper up so that I end up with one square the size of the template and, you know, it all folded to that same size. And then I can cut out multiple at the same time. And I'm just using that first one as the template for all the other leaves I'm cutting out. Then once I've got a ton of my leaf templates, I'm pinning them to the dressmaking dummy so that I can see how it's going to look. Because I haven't sketched this out in advance, so I want to make sure that it's going to look good before I start attacking the leather. Also, it means you know exactly how many leaves you need to cut out. So I'm taking all of those back off the dummy so that I can use them as templates to cut out the fabric. So before I actually start cutting the leaf shapes in the fabric, I'm unpicking the back of the jacket so that I have a nice flat piece of fabric to work with. You don't really need to do this. You could just, you know, attach all the templates and work with it while the jacket's still in one piece. I just find it much easier to work with like flat pieces of fabric. If you don't want to spend the time unpicking things, but you still want to work with a nice flat piece of fabric, then you could just cut along these seams. We're not going to be using them anyway. So you can just cut along them and, you know, it'll work fine and it'll probably save you some time. Once I've got my nice flat bit of fabric to work with, I'm pinning the leaf templates onto it. And I'm avoiding pinning them so that any of the stitched seams are going to end up on the leaves. I'm staying kind of inside the borders of that. And I'm bunching them up nice and close together so I can get as many leaves as possible out of this fabric. And I'm not going to hem these either, so I'm not worried about leaving a border around the edge to hem them. I'm just going to leave them with a nice raw edge. Once I've got the first batch of them pinned down, I'm cutting them out. And I find it easier to kind of just cut the section of material that they're on out and then trim each of those sections into shape. It's just easier to cut them out neatly if you're only working with like a small piece with one template on it instead of, you know, a big piece with a million templates on it. And once you've got them all cut out, you should have a nice big pile of leaves. There's one more thing that we need to cut out, and that is the choker part of this. Because we need something that actually goes around the neck and kind of fastens at the back. Otherwise, we've kind of got no way to make this go on the neck. So I'm picking a strip of fabric from the back that's going to be long enough to go around my neck and has a bit of extra space so that you can attach some poppers or some buttons or something like that to fasten it. This isn't going to be visible at the front, so you could use a contrasting fabric instead of leather, or you could just have it as kind of a support for the leaves at the neck point and then have something at the back instead, like a string that you tie or maybe some crisscross laces, something like that. So now that all of our pieces are cut out, it is time to start constructing this. So I'm starting with the neck piece because that's kind of the foundation of what's holding everything together. And I'm pinning it onto the dressmaking dummy. Sadly, my dummy does not have enough neck for this design. Then I'm pinning the first row of leaves, and the first row are going straight over that choker just next to each other. And the top of each leaf is poking over the top of it, so the choker should be completely covered with just a bit of leaf poking over the top. Then I'm pinning the leaves going down and out from there. And these top leaves are kind of like how a tiled roof would be. So the top leaves are the top ones, and every leaf that I'm putting on is going underneath the leaves above it. And you can make this whatever shape you want. I'm making it so it goes over the shoulders and kind of down in a point at the center. But you know, pin them however you want, do it in a way that looks good to you. And this is the best time to really jiggle things about and get things exactly how you want them. So don't be afraid to unpin things and move things around and just get everything nice and perfect. Then we're going to start stitching this whole thing together. Again, I'm starting at the top with this. And so all those leaves that are sitting on the choker, I'm putting a stitch in each side of the leaf at the top of the choker and 2 stitches at the bottom, 1 on each side of the leaf. And all of the leaves in this, that's how they're being anchored, with stitches at the top and the bottom and on the side. So each leaf should be held down by 4 points. Except for the bottom leaves, because we don't have anything at the bottom that we can anchor them to with that stitch. And we want those ones to just be hanging free. But with the rest of them, you don't want kind of the bottoms or the tops or anything flipping over. You want everything to stay like really nicely where you've positioned it. I'm using very small stitches to do this. That's why using a thinner thread would be better, because I don't want these stitches to show. I want it to kind of look like everything's just staying there by magic. This bit is quite time consuming and it is a bit fiddly, but just stick with it. I found it really helpful to keep moving the pins around and adding more pins to hold bits together as I was going. And it also made it easier to work from the edges inwards. Once you have finally got all those leaves sewn together, we need to do something so that the back can actually do up. And I forgot to mention that you would need some poppers or buttons or laces or something. I've gone for some poppers, but I kind of wish I'd done laces because that would have looked really cool. But anyway, I am just stitching a popper onto each side of the back of the neck piece so that we have a way to actually do this thing up so it will stay on our necks. Then I'm trimming off all of the loose threads that are just kind of hanging around, making the back look really messy. And I'm not trimming them too close to the knots. I'm basically just trimming them enough so that there's no chance that they're going to be showing from the front when you're wearing the neck thing. And that's it, you are done. You now have your very own fancy neck collar. So I hope this was helpful, guys, and I will see you next time. Bye!